Let's start with a classic boring question.
If coming out had been a relief, at that time in '76, plenty of other pressures were bearing down on the young star.
I'm only 26, and I think that really my best work is, of course, to come. I just knew that one day, sooner or later, I would have success in some field or other. I always knew I'd be famous one day. I mean, I didn't...
You little liar. And now you are famous. I'd be very, very careful if I were you.
And I guess that's why they call it the blues. Time on my hands.
When I got to have time on my hands, problems started because I was always being Elton. And then when you stop doing the touring and the performing, you're not that person on stage anymore. And things have gone so quickly that I had no money to a lot of money to a big house, and things were really out of balance. I mean, being on stage was very comfortable for me. Being off stage was not very comfortable for me. It's a lonely business anyway. It's the gypsy kind of lifestyle. You have your immediate family around you, which I loved, and I've had, you know, the same kind of people around me for a long time, thank God. But everybody involved in that little family group wants a relationship of their own or a life of their own, and it's terribly hard when you're travelling all the time.
He's always been very quiet, so that... I know, though, when he's in a mood, but I don't ever expect him to sort of be over the moon any time.
Mothers are the most perceptive people in the world. They immediately know when something's not completely right. She knew that I was working myself into a standstill, basically, and the drugs had started by that point, and she didn't like it, and I don't blame her, no. It's just... I was extremely thin in those days, and oh, to be that thin again. But it was more to do with the Peruvian diet than anything else.
Elton's grueling schedule and growing drug problems sent him into a downward spiral, ending in a bizarre suicide attempt.
I was all over the place, and I threw myself in the pool and said I'd, you know, taken sleeping tablets, and it was a cry for attention. It was just selfish, indulgent behaviour. My grandmother was there, said, "Oh, we better believe we'll go home then." Not "Are you okay?" The perfect answer is like you know, absolute idiot, you know.
Elton's cry for help resulted in nothing more serious than a visit to the emergency room. He was soon on the mend, but his drug use was escalating.
Charlie, Toot, whatever you wanted to call it, it was readily available and not that expensive. It gave me confidence. I took it initially to join in, you know, to be part of the gang. You know, oh, this is dangerous, and I've never done anything dangerous before. And I was quite a shy person, so I found it made me very verbose and very sort of relaxed and could join in and took all my inhibitions away. But like anything that I've ever done, as far as alcohol or drugs, I did it too much, and I'm not one of these people that could do a line and just have one line. I would have to do the gram of coke and then send out for more. It was a horrible drug for my addictive personality, and because I took so much of it, I needed to drink more or to smoke more spliffs to come down from it. And then the more I stayed up, the more I didn't eat, then the more I went to bed, and the more I ate, and I threw it up. It became a sort of vicious circle of drugs, alcohol, marijuana, bulimia. It was just a vicious circle, and the one thing about cocaine was that that I kept working while I was on it. I mean, I made a rule that I would never go on stage drunk or, you know, under the influence of anything, but I'm afraid that during the 80s that rule went out the window, and I did go on stage under the influence of alcohol and cocaine. It was the most horrible drug to go on stage with, because you're so paranoid anyway. And you're saying, is this too fast? Is this too slow? Are the audience liking it? Am I singing in tune? It was like a horrible drug to go on stage with. I was staying at the Inn on the Park Hotel in London, which is now the Four Seasons, and it was about 11 o'clock in the morning, and I was still up, and it was really windy. And I phoned the office and asked them if they could do something about it. And that was Gianni Versace's favourite story. Stop the wind, stop the wind. That's how crazy you are.
In New York, fans gathered and the shooting happened just after.
Elton was brought back to earth with a bang on December the 8th, 1980, following the tragic assassination of one of his closest friends.
As news spread through New York, fans gathered at the gates to his apartment. The shooting happened just after returning from a recording session. The killer shouted his name, then fired 5 shots at close range.
I was on a plane going from Brisbane to Melbourne in Australia, and when we arrived in Melbourne, my manager, John Reid, came onto the plane and someone made the announcement, "Will all the Elton John party please stay on board?"
John Lennon had been shot dead outside his New York apartment.
By mid-morning, the gates of John Lennon's luxury apartment block had become a shrine.
Imagine all the people.
No one could believe it. It was a horrible, horrible moment. It was just one of disbelief. I mean, especially to be murdered, because John was not only kind to me, he was kind to my band, he was kind to my parents, he was kind to everyone around me.
But I'm not the only one.
Just didn't make any sense. Just did not make any sense.
And the world will live as one.
Quite a good cross there.
Coming up, Elton has a passionate affair with football.
There's 20,000 people saying, "Don't sit down while Elton's around or you'll get a penis up your arse."
A brief fling with married life.
Sexually, I was very embarrassed because I'd never really done it with a girl before, and she was fantastic, and I enjoyed the sexual part of it.
And ends his relationship with drugs.
I knew that this was the time that I would either have to make the decision I was going to get sober or I was going to die.
Welcome back to the epic world of Elton Hercules John. Ever since he was a young lad in North London, Elton John always dreamed of playing for his beloved Watford FC.
Watford for me is like Roy of the Rovers. You have to understand that my dad used to take me to Watford when I was about 6 years old. That would be 1953. And they've always been my team. I, grew up in Pinner. Watford was the nearest professional soccer club. So you have an affiliation. You never lose that for the whole of your life.
In 1976, a skint and struggling Watford invited Elton to step in as chairman. Where most sensible millionaires would run a mile, for the pop star from Pinner, it was a boyhood dream come true.
I may have been Elton John pop star, but to them, I was their chairman. I had a responsibility. They put their 2 pennies in. They adored me. They gave me so much support. But they were going to tell me what they thought. With me being an openly gay chairman, I did take some stick. But you know what? I wasn't ever scared. There was lots of abuse where you think, oh, God, you're sitting there, and there's 20,000 people saying, "Don't sit down while Elton's around or you'll get a penis up your arse." It's kind of embarrassing, especially when the board of directors are going, "What are they saying?" And my mother's there going, "Oh, nothing." But, it's Elton, Elton, give us a wave. Elton, you old puff, give us a wave. And I loved that because I wasn't getting that in my professional career. No way, because I was Elton John, I could get away with everything.
But one man, tough-talking Watford FC manager Graham Taylor, never minced his words.
He brought to the fore the fact that I needed to stop drinking. I remember turning up for a game at Boxing Day and a bit worse for the wear. Graham knew that I was not at my best and had the balls to actually say, "Listen, what's wrong with it?" It's hard to tell someone like me the truth sometimes because people are afraid for some reason to, "Oh, I don't want to upset him," He put the bottle of brandy on the table and said, "There, that's what you want, isn't it? A bottle of brandy?" "No, plonk, bottle. What's the matter with you? What the fuck's your problem?"
Under Graham and Elton, Watford reached successes previously unseen at the North London club.
It's always forgotten what we achieved at Watford Football Club and how much I personally put the time and effort in. It wasn't just a matter of just chucking money. We went from the 4th division to the 1st division, which is now the Premiership, in 5 years, and then we finished second in our first year in the 1st division, and it shocked a lot of people. It was incredible success.
So successful, in fact, that in 1984, Watford made it to the hallowed turf of Wembley for the first time.
Getting to the cup final was an incredible achievement anyway. I think, Graham and I will always say, you know, we gave it too much credence, we respected it too much, that's why we didn't win.
And shot! Looking in, trying to go across there. Oh! Andy Gray! And he's given the victory for Everton in the FA Cup.
In my dreams, I'd like to have beaten the Blasters by about 6-0, but we didn't. We didn't win on the day. We weren't prepared mentally as Everton were. One day.